So I agreed to do a little opening just to say what the context that I'm aware of that we're doing. Neal is going to be presenting on the inner planes with a specific kind of correlation to some of Ra's teachings, and maybe drawing from Quo as well. Is that right, Neal?
Yes. Start with raw and then kind of easier to digest the Quo material. So start with raw, then move to Quo.
Yeah.
Cool. And there'll be time for Q&A at the end.
Yes. So it's about 78 slides, and I can read pretty quick. And if I get through them, I'm assuming that'll be about an hour-ish, and then leaving 25 minutes for questions.
Okay. So we'll just sort of turn over the floor to you and receive what you're sharing, and maybe make note of our questions if we have any.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Sure can.
All right.
All right, we'll turn it over to you, Neal. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. So I just want to start with a little centering invocation and get settled before I start. Just close our eyes and take a couple deep breaths. As always, we come in gratitude and thanksgiving for the one infinite creator creating all that there is. Give thanks to the Confederation for helping guide this planet through the shift in fourth density. And so many thanks to those guides and angels and ancestors, all the unseen helpers pushing us along during this lifetime. And I ask that the guides and unseen friends be here tonight and just help me through this presentation, and may everyone just find a little inspiration and joy from this. Amen. All right, so I'll get started with a little intro on how I got interested in the inner planes, and started when my mom passed in 2020, and I went down the rabbit hole of what happens after death, and started with near-death stories and near-death podcasts, and finding the similarities between the stories of people that pass and come back. And then I got into Michael Newton, who does hypnotic regressions, and he's regressed thousands of patients, and there's a lot of similar accounts from them. So he kind of mapped out what they said of what the afterlife might look like. And then moving to the raw material and Quo, just love the way that it's worded and makes sense to me. So decided to create this PowerPoint, and here we go. So the inner planes is mentioned about 15 times in the raw contact, and about maybe 300 different times in the Quo material. So it's used a lot. And our wonderful Diana from TOTOH worked with Gary to bring out certain concepts from the Law of One to help the everyday seeker understand some of the ideas. So I decided to dive into the inner planes based off of what Diana wrote, and there's only about a paragraph in there, so I wanted to expand on it and see what else I could find. So most of my sources from this presentation come from the L&L research page, starting with raw contact, and then channelings from the early 70s, and they go all the way up to present day, but mine went till 2010. And like I said, here are some of the books that helped inspire my view of what happens after this physical life. And the Proof of Heaven, Evan Alexander is a great read. He's able to relay his view of the afterlife and how the brain isn't the source of everything, because he's a neurosurgeon. So it's a fun story to read. Start out with a little quote from Ra, and then we'll move into the rest. So, thus the one intelligent infinity invested itself in an exploration of manyness. Due to the infinite possibilities of intelligent infinity, there is no ending to manyness. The exploration, thus, is free to continue infinitely and an eternal present. So everything is continuing to evolve and continuing to go somewhere. And where does it go? Just want to start with pictures to kind of get in the zone for what exactly the inner planes might be. So I wanted to start with some outer planes, and this is a picture of a star being pulled into a black hole. And then moving to an outer planes or another planet far off into the distant galaxy, and there's so many planets out there, it's mind-blowing. And then we move to outer plane contacts like aliens or entities that have evolved off of Earth and come to help or spread their view or agenda on what they think is the right way to live in third density. And then we get the raw ancient Egyptian beings that are so just, it's hard to deny all the hieroglyphics and whatnot from ancient Egypt. The outer planes of our planet itself and all the beauty that we have on this wonderful planet. And then we move to second density and those creatures that are so diverse, and what happens when they pass, and what happens when all these creatures have thoughts and we have certain thoughts about these creatures. Where does all the ideas and the, I guess, energies of these beings go? So if we have this many on the outer planes, it's hard to imagine what could be on the inner planes. And then we move to all the different people on our planet and all the different thoughts, all the different beliefs in what happens. And I like to listen to the near-death stories from different cultures, and some have met Jesus, or some meet entities or beings that they wouldn't normally believe in, and they all go through a similar process, no matter what your beliefs or ideas. And then moving into the human beyond the outer realms and moving into the more inner personality. And the picture on the right showing a woman meditating and having helpers and beings that are assist her call. And I like this picture just because it's so popular in the modern day, even with kids and just Marvel movies being out there and showing the astral body coming out of this character, and then they go explore different parts of the city in astral form. And this little image is sort of what I think may be the in-between of exiting the physical, moving into a tunnel of light that would bring you to the inner planes. So this part right here would be right after passing, and you would potentially see guides, family members, Jesus, whoever you would expect, and then they would help bring you into the inner planes, and this would be the tunnel that would bring you there. This image was thinking of a child that is seeing spirits and reaching out and making a lot of fuss about something that this guy may not potentially see, but I like to view it as the baby making a commotion to let the guy know there's something there. And I work around children, and just to see babies always googly-eyed looking everywhere, I like to think that they're looking at deceased loved ones and helpers that are around us that we can't see. And then we have elves, fairies, things of that folkloric nature, moving into what I could potentially see as an inner planes realm of light beings and just creatures that are having fun and just in their own little different world. And then here's an image of what I believe we would see with our untrained physical eyes, and they would be light anomalies or orbs, and those would be the different spirits moving in our physical, but we just see this orb. And if you could see the reverse in the inner planes realms, then they would be the full living entity. World of cryptids, so common throughout the planet. There's all these things that people see, report, but are they real? Are they not real? And Ra goes into Bigfoot and other things that are real. And I believe they talk about the cattle mutilations and things of that nature. So what are those things that are unseen and create these unexplained events around the planet? And then here's the mysterious inner city of Tibet. Just another example of the mystery of the inner earth or different realms on the planet. This image, I first thought of it being the core of the planet and these light beings kind of helping assist the planet itself, and it being kind of a gateway to the physical, like the could be either or. I thought it was an interesting picture. And then all those fictional movies and things that humans have created, do they go somewhere? Do they become real on some level when you think of them? Were they real before and it's a memory? Where did they all come from and where do they go? So start with the raw contact, and one that stood out to me was in session 17. So the questioner, I've heard that there are 7 astral and 7 devaconic primary levels. Is this correct? I am Ra. You speak of some of the more large distinctions in levels in your inner planes. That is correct. Questioner, well, who inhabit the astral and who inhabit the devaconic planes? I am Ra. Entities inhabit the various planes due to their vibrational nature. The astral plane varies from thought forms in lower extremities to enlightened beings who become dedicated to teach learning in the higher astral planes. And the devaconic planes, as you call them, are those whose vibrations are even more close to the primal distortions of love light. Beyond these planes, there are others. Questioner, well, this is difficult, our physical plane, are there 7 subplanes to what you call our physical plane here? I am Ra. You are correct. This is difficult to understand. There are an infinite number of planes in your particular space-time continuum distortion. There are 7 subplanes of the mind-body-spirit complexes. You will discover the vibrational nature of the 7 planes as you pass through your experiential distortions, meeting other selves of the various levels which correspond to the energy influx centers of the physical vehicle. The invisible or inner third density planes are inhabited by those who are not of body complex nature such as yours. That is, they do not collect about their spirit-mind complexes a chemical body. Nevertheless, these entities are divided in what you may call an artificial dream within a dream into various levels. In the upper levels, desire to communicate knowledge back down to the outer planes of existence become less due to the intensive learned teaching which occurs upon these planes. So a little side note, I've tried to decipher that line at the bottom. Nevertheless, these entities are divided into what you may call an artificial dream within a dream into various levels. So that is a discussion point that I would like to bring up at the end if no one else has questions. And then moving to the quote material, I had this guy pop up in my mind, and it's from the movie Dodgeball. And he says something like the 5 ways to dodge a dodgeball, or dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. And I went back and forth on adding the slide, just thinking that it was dumb and why do it, but just a reminder to have fun and watch silly movies and just take this incarnation with a sense of humor and try to really lighten our vibration when we can. So space-time versus time-space. Space-time is the visible, physical realm that we now experience as conscious, incarnate beings. This is the realm of physics and the proverbial 5 senses. Time-space is the invisible metaphysical realms, the realms of intention. They share an inverse relationship due to the inequality between time and space. These space-time, time-space distinctions, as we understand them, do not hold sway except in third density. However, fourth, fifth, and to some extent, sixth densities work within some system of polarized space-time, time-space. So what are the inner planes? They're a wide variety of planes realms known under many different names. The astral, devaconic, etheric, dream states, and other modes of non-ordinary consciousness. And also where we go in between lives. The term inner planes is misleading in that the inner planes are planes in time-space, or the metaphysical world, as opposed to space-time, such as your planet is with solid rock and water and so forth. Therefore, the inner planes do not have a physical location except tangentially, because they belong to the planet Earth. Where are the inner planes? The inner planes do not have a physical location. They do have an arrangement in orders of magnitude, perhaps we would say, so they nest together without disturbing each other. There is in each focus of the Creator, which is you and each other human being upon your planet, a gateway into those inner planes. This instrument, or Carla, calls them inner planes because she has read other writings that also call them inner planes, and because they are inside of you. They are not inside creation. You are the center of a consciousness that is local and also non-local. The locality of the consciousness is that connection with the physical body that happened at some point between conception and a few weeks after birth. The solution of each of the 7 inner planes being connected to a corresponding locality is not correct as far as we are aware of the situation. All of the inner planes are connected back into one physical locality of the influence of planet Earth. How? So the inner planes resonate within the energy of the planet itself, which creates, at the moment of its beginning, all of the planes in completion as a pattern. Through the illusion of space-time, seems then to begin to appear and to develop and so forth. The conditions in time-space are quite different, and consequently, there is not the bar against remembering and being completely aware of the metaphysical nature of what this instrument would call a deeper reality, and the passing nature of all things which participate within this world of life and death. The planet upon which you live is not one Earth, but many, interpenetrating each other at various levels of fineness of vibration, so that there are actually 7 inner Earths to one physical Earth. Entities who live on Earth and have incarnations upon your planet move into the inner planes, or the heaven worlds, upon death, and live in whatever niche they have earned by their vibration. And I like to see this little picture of the woman having her violet ray expressed in red before moving into the inner planes. We search for a word other than earned because it is not a matter of studying hard and passing a test. It is a matter of the absolute honesty of self that your violet ray is. Whatever your violet ray expresses, it will bring you to the appropriate place in the inner planes where everything is vibrating in harmony with your vibration at that time. Entities move from the inner planes back to incarnation, then back to the inner planes. Sometimes they stay in the inner planes for quite some time and decide not to take incarnation. And I chose this picture partly because I think that all of these beings are of a similar vibrational nature. They all look very studious and wise, and they're within the inner planes, staying there, learning from a higher master or a higher being than themselves. And I am big on this medium. Her name is Suzanne Giesman, and she supposedly got in contact with the deceased Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer's messages to Suzanne were that he is now within the inner realms of the planet working with the masters. And I found that to be very correlating with this material. So how? Each of the subplanes of those inner planes has its own environment. Those who are able to sift through the planes have the experience, that feeling of almost going through different grades of water as they move through the subplanes to that precise vibration of energies that is equivalent to their most comfortable place within the inner planes. It is one of those situations where, unless you are very, very experienced and sophisticated, if you are able to penetrate the gateway and move into the inner planes, you will automatically be taken to the location which matches your needs or your desires the most. And I guess with this slide, I want to make note with people that take DMT or move into these realms and places that don't match their desires, and they just send themselves there and they see beings, and sometimes the other beings can also be surprised that they're there. And so I think that trying to access things through drugs can all be done through different ways, but just to be careful and aware of your desires and thoughts before trying to move into a different realm of experience. The inner planes are crowded with entities of all kinds, polarities, orientation, and description. They are completely creatures of thought. They are moved by thoughts. Being creatures of energy, they are moved by energy. So we will one day not have a body, be within the inner planes, being creatures of thoughts and creatures of energy. So that's why it's so important to do the work in the physical form to refine your thoughts and be as high vibration as you can to bring you to that appropriate place in the inner planes. That will be, the better you do here, the better you'll have there. There has been created through many centuries the naming of vast panoplies of beings of a certain order. For instance, the one known as V has pointed out there is a very careful and large order of various types of angelic beings. There are in other systems of myth and magic many names for inner planes guides, many names for nature spirits, and many names for elemental spirits. They are essences which are beyond the naming, much as you yourselves are essences beyond the naming, because they have not any relationship whatsoever with space-time, being completely creatures of thought. So who else? Life calls to life, and life within third density space-time calls to life within the inner planes. The inner plane's life calls to and seeks to serve third density space-time beings. The nature of angels is not qualitatively different from the essence of beings such as fairies, pixies, Puck, Robin Greenfellow, and all such kindly and jovial spirits. Now let us say here that in discussing the inner planes, we discuss a universe vaster than the physical universe and greatly populated with a very wide gamut of personalities. We ourselves dwell in, shall we say, a parking garage in fifth density. This is Quo speaking. And so the fifth density Latwii is the one that states this. As it were, as we are involving ourselves with your vibrations at this time, we are part of that network of inner planes that includes all of the spirits that seek to serve. So I believe in the Raw Contact, they talk about wanderers directly appearing within the inner planes without having incarnation. And I guess the inner planes is, since it's in time space, they're able to still talk with entities of different densities and they're not veiled. So Quo is learning how to talk with Carla and talk with modern day channelings and questions through some of the inner planes humans that have passed. So they're kind of working with inner planes deceased or moved on beings, and then using that experience to talk with Carla or the LNL team. Entities from the unseen or inner realms of your planet are many, and their interactions with those who are incarnate on your planet are numerous. A large category of the interaction between spirit and flesh is the interaction between the self with the guidance system of that self. Your guidance system is, in the words of this instrument, the Holy Spirit, and in the words of the social memory complex known as Ra, the higher self. It is helpful to think in the terms of the latter configuration of words in terms of determining who your guidance system really is. For your guidance system is not an entity other than yourself. Rather, it is an access point into your larger self. And this image really stuck out with the meditating physical. And then I like to see the one person behind her as a guide. And then there's kind of like an angelic being farther back that could be the higher self. And then it's also like a ball of light above her head that could be source, and everything's all connected. And those orbs around her are other ancestors and family members and just beings that have attracted to this entity through all of her experiences. And I like to think if we could see time space during meditation, that it might look something like this. So who else? They range from tiny children who simply want to help you find lost things to the most wonderful and complex personalities, masters, and gurus. Some of these entities have names. Some of them are simply energies or essences. Some of them speak in ways such as we do, in concepts which come up through the subconscious mind. Some of them speak through coincidence, birds, animals, or street signs, using your environment to find ways to communicate a word or a concept or a feeling with you. Some of them speak to you in sleep, and some, such as we, are there during meditation if you ask us to join, so that we may deepen the stability of your basic meditative state. So I chose a couple common synchronicities that people see with numbers and then animals and birds. And I know it's pretty common to have a cardinal show up after a loved one moves on. And that was so intense that I thought this cardinal was going to break its beak on my window because it wouldn't stop tapping for weeks. So I had to throw that picture in there. And here's a little interesting thing I found about Gandhi. The entity known to you as Gandhi was an entity which had already achieved its graduation, shall we say, within another density and has proceeded to remain within the inner planes of this particular planet, so that guidance may be given to many of those who were under its care during its incarnation. This entity shall return to its origins when this cycle is, we correct this instrument, when the cycle is appropriately completed for this planet. So I saw this combo picture of Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and there was an article stating that Martin Luther King visited a room that Gandhi had been in before, and he said, in that moment, I can feel Gandhi's presence, I can feel Gandhi's vibrations, and felt guided by him. So I like this little side piece from Latwii to say, yeah, he's in the inner planes and just helping those beings that feel called. So let's see what Hatan tries to describe the inner planes as. So imagine a TV set. There is a potential to watch a channel or world. Only until the TV is activated, you can then view the channels. You can choose a channel or world to view. You will view a world on one channel and a different world on a different channel, each channel seemingly coming from the same TV set, but each world becoming completely different and completely oblivious to all other worlds. All things in your world are energy fields, and each energy field has its own unique vibration. There are 7 levels, and some of these levels are not visible, just as one channel would not be visible to another. The skill and art of penetrating into the inner planes is a hidden art. It is hidden for a reason. Each of you is here to learn the lessons of love, and as you penetrate into the inner planes, the lessons of love become very obvious, and thus your existence here becomes quite changed. So I guess we go into the inner planes where we're not veiled, we create our life plan, and during our incarnation, if we were to go and try to find those, then we would basically have the blueprint of our life, and we would be kind of, and not cheating, but I'm sure that it would cause some disruption in your plan. So the method for achieving entrance into higher, or shall we say denser, more light, more beautiful realms of existence is a mixture of certain disciplines of the person's visualization, applied study, meditation, and a constant will to know the truth in order to serve others. If you have this desire, you will find people who will help you in your search. See what Oxal has to say. One must let go, listen, and watch for one's inner guides, the angelic presences, and the higher sources of inspiration. They are constantly available. There may even be a word inserted edgewise into one's internal dialogue. Listening back to these voices may be likened to that reaching back after the vanishing dream upon the awaking and reintroduction into the round of daily affairs. The more one tries, often the less one succeeds in reaching back for that dream that has eluded one. The more one merely allows the dream to once again have its sway, the easier it becomes to explore what has transpired within the dream. So asking for help. The only bar to that help is the lack of solid knowing that help is available. It is much more difficult for inner planes entities to aid humankind if the human is not aware of or calling upon that help. Consequently, we encourage each never to spend the time wondering if such help is available. So the help is always available, and I believe what they mean there. If you think that it doesn't work and you think that the help isn't real, then it's going to cancel it out. The universe is literally bursting at the seams with energy and information, and all of its desires to be known and all of its desires to be used. A large amount of help goes unused because it is unasked for and unregarded. Much help from the higher angelic realms is only available to those who ask. How greatly each entity's guidance system wishes to help. We give this instrument the image of a dozen angels sitting all about the living room on curtain rods and windowsills and the tops of bookcases, just hoping and waiting to be asked. So I like to play with this slide in my own home, and like my kitchen countertop, I like to think that there's little beings running around, or any time that I'm meditating, I imagine my guides coming up from behind me and just kind of like helping my energy field, and trying to imagine just beings around the house helping out and working on my visualization. So it's a little fun technique to think that there's bunches of things out there that we can't see trying to help us. So while asking for that help, you want to be safe and protect yourself. Questioner: if one wanted to ask for help from a particular angel or from the elementals, how would one go about protecting oneself and trying to be sure that what you are getting is positive, creator-oriented help? Well, we would recommend that the petition for assistance be made while in the meditative state. In this state, you may communicate that which is your heart's desire most clearly to those whose ears and hearts are inclined to a call for service. As you issue the call, having centered yourself, and having made known that which is your desire in asking for assistance, then we would suggest the engaging of a period of silent meditation wherein you would wait for a contact and assistance, shall we say, that is communicated to you through your feelings, through images, or through intuition. That when this contact is perceived, you ask kindly but firmly if it comes in the name of, and then you would supply that quality, entity, or concept which is sacred to you, be it Jesus, the Christ consciousness, the positive polarity, and any of the various saints who have made themselves known as intermediaries in these kinds of situations and so forth. When you have received an affirmative reply, then you may know that you have made contact with an entity which is both willing and able to assist you in the manner that you desire. So I found this interesting, that they use the same challenging technique even when just asking for guidance and help from their own beings, from your own guides, which I am a little 50-50 on this, because I think that your guides are within your heart and there's nothing that can kind of block that type of seeking within yourself from happening. But if you're looking for communication from another being outside of your guides, then you should do the challenging process. It's all about joy. There's a tremendous joy and a feeling of play about the free essences of plants, animals, wind, storm, ocean, and so forth. When an entity becomes self-aware in third density, oneself becomes cut off from the joy, the play, and the ever-continuing presence of all other members of the inner planes. Communication. Everything that can be imagined has an energy. When speaking of nature spirits, they are not imaginary beings. They can be considered imaginary in the same way that you are imaginary. You are illusory in a certain order or grade of illusion. You vibrate in a certain series of energy fields or spheres, which have their own order and their own purpose, and they communicate with each other throughout that grade or gamut of energy vibration. Consequently, all physical bodies are communicating. And here's nice mixed pictures of all the different connections, and when we feel like we're separate and in third density, no matter what, everything is still connected on some level. So back to learning from our kids and little ones that may not have been so programmed to not see these things. Indeed, most of those who do see the inner planes entities while conscious are those who this instrument would call children. Those who have not been trained to see such things are impossible to see. So it's kind of like moving back into our childhood-like consciousness to be fun and loving and playing with these things and not to be scared if we do see some type of fairy or troll or something along those lines, Bigfoot. In the case of the elementals of first density, there is a tremendous amount of infinite wisdom in such strong and powerful purity. That energy of fire, that energy of wind, the energy of earth, the energy of water is that of the everlasting element, not simply in its physical characteristic, but in the corresponding spirit of those characteristics. That's like Ra creating through thought, the everlasting rock coming from time-space into space-time. And those blueprints for that rock is within time-space. And there's a lot of wisdom and purity, closeness with the creator in these first density forms. And then like fire and all the rituals and destructive power of fire. And then we just move into power of the elements and nature. And I like to think that hurricanes, we name hurricanes, we give them their like personalities, and they go different ways and seem like they have their mind of their own. So I like to think that there's a spirit or deva or some type of entity living that is part of all of these things. And like the animals with natural disasters, just being more in tune, being second density without as much veil, they're able to escape things like natural disasters, tsunamis before we are. So we can tap back into aligning more with Gaia, then we may help ourselves be more aware of natural disasters that might be in our area, or potentially just more tapped into the planet and feeling like something might be off, or trusting your intuition about a storm or some major event that might be coming to you. So all of these energies may be seen either as focused energy that is attracted as if by a magnet by certain states of mind in space-time, or they may be seen as intelligences which are drawn by likeness of interest or likeness of vibration into a harmony and an association. Each of you being a significant, though small distortion within time-space and space-time continua, you naturally, by your very existence, draw energy and intelligence from the inner planes. Making again, the higher you have your thoughts, the easier it will be to come in contact with these helpers. And it's like they're vibrating, let's say at level 100, and we're vibrating at 0. It's hard for them to get all the way to 0 where we're at, so they go down to 50. And it's our job to refine our thoughts through meditation, getting in nature, all these helpful, healthy ways of living to meet them at that midway point, and to have these intelligences and beings from the inner planes help you. And then the lesser banishing ritual that's so common with the Law of One, and Jim still continuing to do this daily. And in the Raw Contact, they state that the outer planes performing rituals and doing these words, vibrations that have been laid out in a certain way for hundreds of years, potentially thousands of years, they are like a telephone ringing on the other side. And I would like to think of myself performing the banishing ritual, and like maybe one little ring goes off in time space, but Jim does it and there's a fire alarm that goes off, and his is just so precise and been able to do it, and the beings can recognize him through that. So there's certain words and ways to get in contact and rituals that have been passed down that help get in contact with these angels and other beings. So what about aliens and those outer planes mixing with our inner planes? Some extraterrestrial sources have made compacts with inner plane sources. Some extraterrestrial sources have become inner plane sources. And then here's a channeling from Quanta that they brought in 1987. And there's some interesting kind of back and forths between Quanta and Carla. So they're a beginning complex of beings that have achieved green ray vibration of compassion. They're a unified conglomeration of mind, body, and spirits. They are beginning the new cycle of learning within this planetary influence as they serve as the advanced guard or servants that shall make this planet its home. They say, we are thus newly confirmed members of the Confederation of Planets, which offers itself in service to the one infinite creator. And Carla says, so what you are is the small but growing a fourth density memory complex, a social memory complex of Earth. And they say yes. Thus, we have both become members of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the one infinite creator and inhabitants of this planetary sphere. So from what I gathered, they all harmonize their thoughts into being service to others. They achieve green ray, fourth ray harvest, and they've become a social memory complex. Now they are coming into Earth to help us with our transition, being very fresh out of their own and seeing that we need help. They're like, okay, we have the ability to come from a different planet that is going through what you're going through, and we can now help with beings that go from the outer planes back to the inner planes, outer planes back to the inner planes. We are in a unique position that allows us to serve in the capacity of intermediaries, which may hopefully aid both the contact and the new instrument in this service. We have our own journey of seeking and move upon it in harmonic resonance with this particular planetary influence. Questioner, are you the energy which Latos mentioned in a previous meditation that wished to realize me as their local channel? I am Quanta and am the one of that naming and seek to introduce your instrument to yet others if the desire and progress upon this path of service continues to grow. And they say, while being in the inner planes, it is impossible to place the same standards of information upon inner planes masters and outer planes servants, for those within the higher planes of Earth's system are often agreeably pleased with themselves for achieving such a high level of understanding. That is because such entities often have put off the day when, for the first time, they move into fourth density. Thus, inner plane channeling can become most uninspiring. Be aware that only through practice does the inner ear become keen. Know too that inner planes masters, having by definition had at least one incarnation upon your earth plane, they have the right and to various degrees the ability to offer personal material that is material concerning someone who wishes to know about previous lifetimes or the efficacy of future actions. So basically, Quanta was saying that you have to have an incarnation as a master. You have to be on Earth and had an incarnation, and that they give information that can only be viewed from their specific soul's journey instead of an outer planes contact like Ra being potentially millions of different beings of a social memory complex going through billions of years of evolution instead of when we channel the masters and they give us their view of life, but they haven't gone past a certain level. The inner planes of your sphere have many greatly wise inhabitants and many not so wise, all of whom are moved to at times become involved with a living that is incarnationally lying entity. These inner planes beings and energies have a right as those of a native land to be very frank and personally helpful to the extent of their knowledge with those to whom they may speak. So that's why I like the raw context so much, because it's got such a different view than other channelings that are from guides and beings within our own planet. And they give such a vast description of the universe. So inner battles. The nature of third density is that of the choice. Consequently, on the subtler planes, the inner planes of your third density, those whom you call angels began the noble quest that still partakes of polarity, the armor of light in battle with the forces of darkness. This has been occurring upon the inner planes for many years and upon the planes closest to you for approximately 250 years. For a great portion of your last major cycle of 75,000 plus years, those who have graduated to fourth density have felt it necessary to defend their polarity from the opposite polarity. Their awareness is that of fourth density, yet their prejudices remain those of third density, so they are convinced that they must defend the souls of the planet Earth from the negative polarity. Likewise, those who have graduated in the negative see it their business to battle the light. However, there are always people that are new to fourth density who are willing to take up the cudgels of this heavenly war and do what they feel is the right thing to do in protecting the innocent, developing third density souls on planet Earth. So we have all these continuous inner battles and things going on with these negative beings that are trying to take over our free will. And then we have these opposite beings that are trying to say, no, don't do that. But it kind of keeps them from continuing to evolve because they're going into these prejudices and war type, we got to protect and whatnot. And as you can see, there's battles within the inner planes, and the planet Earth on the outer planes is always going through wars and anger and just not in harmony. So reflecting the as above, so below, it's happening on the outside, also happening on the inside. So here's a nice channeling about some outer planes and what happened with the 9/11 from Ra's point of view. No death is ever a loss without a gain. There was for some of your time an issue which we were connected with, having to do with those souls who were not yet able to leave the inner planes version of that locale in the New York City area. However, we are happy to say that over the 2 or 2.5 weeks after that event, there was help. Those of what you would call your Native American population came to help. Not those Native Americans within this density, but those within the inner planes which are able to work with those entities who were confused at that time. So that at this time, all of those souls which were involved in that tragedy have moved on into the realms of healing and are receiving the balm of Gilead. So I feel very connected, and I think one of the strongest traditions that I follow or would like to dive deeper into would be the Native American tradition, with getting in contact with just all the nature spirits, all the different animals, ancestors. I believe that they were very in tune with inner planes, and they could see the inner planes, and were just basically, that was just part of their reality. Yahweh. Yahweh has had a long relationship with those of planet Earth, especially those which came into incarnation from the planetary influence of the sphere you know as Mars. In altering the genetic code for this large group of entities as they incarnated upon the planet Earth, they placed bits of themselves, shall we say, to make a complex story simpler within the genetic changes that were made, and each of you carries, to some extent, some of these altered changes in your DNA. Consequently, this particular entity contains a host of energies from the inner planes of your planet. There is a legitimate extraterrestrial aspect to this energy, but it is harmonized with inner planes thought forms, which are templates of the genetic changes made 75,000 years ago when those of Mars came into the Earth's sphere. This means that these entities, which together make up the Nine, or Yahweh, have never grown past the impulse or desire to interfere for the good, of course, in the story of planet Earth. So they are similar to Ra, that they are kind of within the inner planes as a responsibility to help fix what they have done. Gratitude. There's a long line of those that wish to incarnate at this time of third density harvest. You were given a body due to your seniority of vibration. For you, unlike those who are within the inner planes of your planet, you have the right, the position, and the entitlement to choose what you will and will what you choose. Then there's a Food at the Gas Pump interview with this guy, Christian Sundberg, and he remembers his pre-incarnative, just the whole process of going through the other side, getting pulled through the veil, what the veil feels like, and then as a baby, and he remembers all of that. So that's a fun interview. And he really goes into like guys, there are trillions of souls out there that want to be on Earth at this time. And if you are aware of it and able to serve and remind yourself that this is a gift, and there are so many else out there that didn't get the opportunity to be here at this important time. And then one last reminder. We do not suggest that the interior monologues and dialogues which you have within yourself, these also being inner planes thoughts by nature, may indeed be helpful. It is simply that as one is taught, so one will desire to get. And for those entities to whom worship is offered, these entities have the responsibility of steering most gently those entities back upon the path of thinking for the self, examining the self, and being aware of one's self-worth as an independence of spirit. For you need nothing to make you complete. The Creator, which is love, lies within you in infinite abundance. Each of you is whole, perfect, and an embodiment of love. The end. All right. Thank you. I would say on the last slide there that if you find yourself getting into a relationship with a guide and they aren't steering you into the direction of you are the creator, then that could be a potential trickster or way that something is raising a red flag, that why this thing is saying that it knows the answers instead of you know the answers, it's all within you, you are the creator, but I can help. So, yeah. So
You did great. Thank you so much, Neal.
thank you.
Wow.
I hope I didn't go too fast. It was a lot.
It was perfect. It was so well done.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I learned a lot. I'm really impressed. The images are amazing. The images feel like they were a transmission just in themselves. Like, oh wow, you did so much work to put it all together. I'm really impressed and touched.
Thank you. Yeah, I have like little snippets from the channelings, and then I copy them into a Word document, and there's probably 80 pages of inner planes snippets that I had to figure out where they go and how to. So I had all these slides, and I'm like, how do I add these and order them, and just kind of surrendering, like, all right, I'm talking about the inner planes, and I should get some form of assistance or help in how to organize this. So kind of trusting that I had help in making this.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Neil, I
was
think you've
really-
given a gift to the world through this presentation, honestly. Like I'm so happy that you did this, and I feel so grateful. I also learned a lot, and I think that this is going to be a really clarifying resource for seekers who contemplate this, lots of the themes that you covered here. So thank you so much.
Definitely. And I was telling BJ when we were talking about adding this to the TOTOH presentations that I could probably add 20, 30 more slides of what they go into the Daviconics and deeper into the elementals and how we can interact with. Yeah. So there's 50 pages of material I can add on to this. So I'll be a little project number 2.
I put in
Show
my
up for
vote
that
for
one.
part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Let's deep dive, because there's so many I want to pull out and be like, wow, so many of those have so much content within them that it's you wove them together beautifully, and there's so much that we can dig into and bring it up into the light with that as well. I love it. I definitely vote for part 2.
Me too.
Can we go back to seeing each other?
Yes.
I see Neal, that was so smooth and delicious. You took me on a journey, and I feel like you reminded me of things I know, but it expanded and expanded into such a holistic, beautiful experience. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I am trying to figure out how to.
It should
share.
say stop share at the top of your screen in a red button. There you go.
Or just swipe your screen to the left.
Did that work?
Yeah, we got it. All right,
Worked.
it's back to gallery now. Mhm.
Nice. So yeah, I guess to the quanta part with an alien coming in and mix it in with our group, that one was interesting. And then that line at the beginning of the artificial dream within a dream, I was wondering if anyone had a take on that these entities are divided in what you may call an artificial dream within a dream into various levels. I don't know if that's saying that third density is a dream and then the inner planes are a dream, or that
Who are these entities that they're referring to?
That's in the raw contact 17.38. They just say that there's an infinite number of planes, and in your plane, so basically just saying that everything that doesn't have a physical body within the inner planes, just all of them, saying these entities are divided in what you may call an artificial dream within a dream.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We're about to be there in
Yeah,
our
maybe.
Sunday sessions. We're getting close. What are we on now? 14?
We just finished 14, so we're about to
Yeah.
do 15.
Well, I want to say something about that, Neil. I want to make a comment and see if this lands for folks. And this actually, a lot of what I was tracking as I was listening to your presentation is what we've been covering in the Secret of Light study group, because Walter Russell says so clearly that the entire physical reality, which I'm just going to go ahead and call third density space-time, is a projection from the mind of God.
Mhm.
And I think that that projection actually is coming from the inner planes. I think the inner planes are sort of like another way of saying the mind of God, you know, the mental, spiritual, non-physical form. And so physical reality is the dream of God. So that's the dream.
Mhm.
And then here we are in the dream. And then we actually are, we're feeding our experience and our thoughts and ideas and imagination back into the mind of God. So I feel like there's a way that we create a dream within a dream by being here in the dream and then having our relationship with the inner planes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess us having a dream while we're in physical, like, is that we're going to, part of what they said in the inner planes is other modes of non-ordinary consciousness and dream states, etheric states. So when we are dreaming, our body, I don't know, I'm trying to like think of dreaming and what exactly is our dreaming. Like when we dream, are we back in the inner planes? But that's different from our body when we die. So they're two separate bodies.
Dreaming, one of the ways to contact time space. Does Ra say that?
Yeah.
That dreams are one way to do work in time space.
Mhm.
And like, so time space is sort of I think it represents like potential, like like unmanifested potential, and you can explore that in your dreams in a way that you can't in daily life. So yeah, I agree with what Aaron said. Like, my interpretation of that is like we're already in a dream, because the real reality is infinity, and then like time space is us dreaming in our dream.
Yeah, BJ and Aaron.
Cool. Yeah, so I raised my hand because I don't know whether this relates or not, but one of the ways that makes sense to me is like in the practice of meditative self-inquiry, I'll often experience that there's like I experience it sort of like nested bubbles. Like if for instance, I'm here now, but I'm recalling a moment in the past, let's say last week, and that moment in the past I was remembering something that happened a year ago, then I can have this sort of nested bubble experience of like, okay, here I am now. I'm remembering last week. In that moment last week, I was remembering something that happened a year ago. And I can like look through all of those like levels and layers of experience, and any sort of like shift in one of those levels impacts all of those levels. So I don't know if that's related, but that's what came to mind for me.
Yeah, I think so.
I have a thought, a query similar. I'm often hearing this sentence I heard from a teacher when I was studying the Tarot and the Kabbalah, and that was "as above, so below, except in reverse." So that keeps making sense when I delve in like this. And you had a quote tonight which was they I'm not sure what they was, but they share an inverse relationship due to the inequality of time and space. And I think that was they meaning the inner planes and the outer planes. Our awareness, because we are limited beings, we're going to have a limited awareness at any given time, but that's the agreement, so we can have something to work with. And but I think we experience our smallness because we are great. We have an experience of inverse reality. So do you remember that quote? They share an inverse relationship due to the inequality.
Yeah, I would ask the same question. I don't like some of these slides. I put them in, but I can't decipher them fully. So I don't know what they're meaning by, they say they share an inverse relationship due to the inequality between time and space. And then these time-space distinctions do not hold sway and except in third density. However, fourth, fifth, and to some extent sixth work within some system of polarized space-time, time-space.
Yeah. We can try our best to understand it from here, but I can sense it. Like what BJ was saying, we have a sense of this nesting, and sometimes it seems inverted, like the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, there's so much to just keep returning to in your presentation. Like there were so many times I was like, I want to watch this again. I just need to watch it again.
Oh, I'm totally watching it again.
Yeah.
I was wondering if anybody has seen fairies, just anything paranormal and types of interplanes beings and had experiences. Spirit song? Oh, I think you're muted.
We can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you.
No.
No.
Oh, I want to hear you, and
Me
you're not
too.
muted.
Me
You can put
too.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Guess can share.
Yeah, you asked if we had any experiences. When my mother's father died, he came to me as a ball of light over. I was sleeping in my bed at night. I was in college here in the United States. He lived in Sweden. He had been in perfect health as far as I knew, so there was no reason to expect him to die at that point. And then my mother called me the next morning, and before she could say anything, I told her that Grandpa had passed away. And she confirmed it. And I knew it because he had come to me to visit me in the night as a ball of light. And I knew it was him, even though I mean, he was just a ball of light. I couldn't see any features or anything, but I knew I could feel that it was him. So that's an experience. That's an experience I had.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Farrellyn, is your hand still up? Or is that from earlier?
No, I'll put it down.
So I have one, I have a friend that's he's writing a book for Llewellyn right now, but he's a very adept ceremonial magician. And we were having a discussion one day, and I was like, okay, so orbs and photos, it continues to happen over my pond, a blue orb, or it often happens over the ocean. He's like, yeah, those are water elementals. And I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. He's like, oftentimes you'll see other orbs of the air elementals. And what are some of the other ones he was saying? But I had seen those, and there's other descriptions for it too, the willow, the wisps in the forest, and around here, they're not spirits, but people mistake them for them. We have what's called blue ghosts, and they're actually blue fireflies, and they're like happening right now. It's like 1 week in the month of June, and they're only in little creeks and valleys. So like where our normal fireflies would be in the rhododendrons and such, these blue ghosts are blue fireflies in little creek areas, and so people mistake those for the will-o'-the-wisps. So it's a catchy thing. And then I'm always referencing we talk a lot about the psychic readings, most of them being negative, and there is a reference page for the whole thing on the LNL research website. If you go to resources, there's an entire page on psychic readings, and it says at the very bottom, Carla recommends Dion Fortune's book on psychic self-defense. And in that book, she talked about a light orb that was following her up the steps that was not a positive path being. It was actually a negative path being. So this is a tricky one where people will see a light ball, and that does not necessarily mean that it's a positive thing because it's light. Because negative path beings also have a light body that can make themselves viewable. And that in and of itself often will trick people who are not used to seeing things. Will see a light body and they get really excited and they think it's positive, and so they listen to the message of whatever this negative path being is like. Oh, I got this one, I just have to say whatever I want. So that was something that stood out in your presentation to me. And I think Aaron and Kent were there for the conversation I had brought up in one of our Law of One study groups, where I was like, who do you use to challenge? Carla challenged in the name of Jesus Christ 3 times before accepting that Ra was a positive half light being speaking to her. And so that is pretty straightforward. But this said, this was a conundrum for me at first when I was like, okay, so this is saying that even just in regular meditation, we have to be careful when we are just, we're going to a state of stillness, we're opening up, asking for guidance. Even then, we are supposed to challenge. And in what it's, can you find that slide? Because it said really specific, ask in the name of what works for you. And it's continue to use a Christian labels of Christ consciousness in the name of Jesus Christ, or a saint or something like that. And so that's what was sparking me for my personal self, not having a Christian overlay on or flavor on these things. Like, who do you use personally in a moment of meditation to verify that it is either your higher self or a positive path light being that is giving you said guidance? Because those negative path beings will absolutely insert themselves every second they can, and they are very tricky tricksters that will make you think that you're getting good advice when it's not. And I liked that you put that in there too. I forget what it was you said. As long as it's steering you towards self-guidance, as long as it's steering you towards looking within and finding the answers from with yourself, that's kind of a giveaway that it is a positive path being. But then the opposite would be look somewhere else outside yourself for an answer. So that gets that kind of a bigger conversation around your guidance system and navigating that. Like, and that kind of bugged me too, because I'm like, I'm exhausted. I don't feel like I should have to navigate meditation now to like just sit in stillness and ask for guidance, to be like, now I have to have a defensive system in place to, according to that quote, it was pretty straightforward that, yeah, even in your moments of meditation and you're calling on us, make sure it's us, or make sure it's positive. So I'm like, I don't feel like that's something a lot of people are aware of or utilizing, if that makes sense. That feels like something worth speaking about a little more, if there's more references to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes LNL such a trustworthy source, is that they're so stick to their kind of like blueprint of how they would go about, and they don't ever stray from it. So they're like, we will always challenge. Like, there's so many, it's a crowded universe, and just one slip up could bring in. I mean, I think that Carla was like in her stage of channeling all the time, that she had her cat run across and knock a glass off, and she went, oh, God damn it, to the cat. And that allowed an entryway, just that quick second of like anger allowed a negative entity to start affecting her arthritis and pain again. So she's like, you have to be extremely, like, once you get to the level where she is so in contact, so in tune, that those other beings and other entities are just waiting. And so I guess as you get more in tune with your own guidance and meditate more, the brighter you're going to shine, and that will attract those beings that want to put out your light.
I was gonna say that too, that the lighter you, the brighter you shine, the stronger you have to be against the negative path, because the more attraction, like, so we could just be sitting here leveling up, doing our thing, shining brighter, bringing up our love light and our light love and radiating out to the world. And we're just kind of la-di-da about it. And we start attracting parasitic entities, even as like low level as fleas and lice, to the larger beings that have names. So they talk about that too, and I think it's kind of glossed over because a lot of people don't know how to respond with that. Which is why I feel like we should totally, BJ and Aaron, I need to listen, have one of those sessions where we like talk about that as a larger spectrum of things. Basically, in short, the brighter you shine, the more you're attracting to you. So talking about defenses and things like that, I think, is a worthy conversation for our group eventually.
Yeah. Well, because we have a couple minutes, so I want to let Kent go. And I don't know, just Aaron and BJ, I don't like, what's the restrictions with time?
Does anybody need to stop right at 30 past? We could go a couple minutes over. Oh, Amanda does. And Amanda had her hand raised too. I don't know if.
Yeah, Amanda, if you need to go at 8:30, you can go ahead before me.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say something, but now I don't feel like saying it anymore.
Okay.
But you need to hop off right at 8:30. But this has been awesome. I'll just say that. Thank you so much, Neal. Thanks everybody. It's so enlightening.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you. So, okay, what I was going to say has two tie-ins to the discussion. I mean, first, it's another experience of being from the inner planes, and secondly, it's a negative entity. That at that time when that happened, I didn't know how to challenge a negative entity or anything like that, which is kind of the point of my story. Because even if you don't challenge a negative entity, to make sure it's positive, I think we all have the ability to feel also, because I could feel that it was a negative entity. So it didn't matter that I didn't challenge it, because, I could sense it was negative. And so therefore I rejected it. So now I know about this challenging procedure. I forget the name of it. What do you call it? What Jim does and everybody to challenge? Okay, well, it has a name.
Just challenging.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah. So this was when I first learned to meditate, and it was in 1987, a long time ago. This entity came to me when I first began to practice meditation, and kind of wanted to join me in my meditations, join with my being and merge its energy with mine when I meditated. But I could sense, and I perceived it as a bright light. As Nia said, negative entities also have light. But I could sense it didn't feel good to me. So I did not allow it to merge with me and come into my energy field like it wanted to. And then my younger brother, learned to meditate like a year after me or something. Same meditation method. And I didn't talk to him about it then, but I talked to him about it many years later. And he said many years later, he told me he had the exact same experience. This entity of light came to him and wanted to merge with him. And he also felt that this entity didn't feel good to him. And his response was to stop meditating at first. But then later on, he decided to take it up again and just reject this entity as I had done. So it's interesting. We had the exact same experience of the negative entity. And we both felt that even though it was an entity of light, it didn't feel good to us. So we didn't allow it to merge with our energy fields. Yeah, that's my story. And I'm sticking to it.
So after the challenge, was it just one challenge? You said, I don't want you, and then it never came back, or?
Right. Yeah. I wanted to merge with our energy fields. And I guess the entities on the negative path also have to respect our free will, right? So essentially, me and my brother both chose to reject this entity. And after we rejected it, it didn't come back. And we did that only based on the fact that it didn't feel good. It was our feeling, our what do you call it?
Intuition.
Yeah, intuition or clairsentience or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I will definitely continue working on starting a second presentation and getting more slides and whatnot together. So
You've got a hungry audience here, Neal, for
Yeah.
sure. That's clear.
Yeah.
all right. Well,
And also just, I want to say, you know, anybody else who has things that you want to present and share with the collective, you know, like how we do at the Fourth Density Saturdays, we can do those online too. So consider what you've learned about or what you're passionate about and want to share. Because, you know, obviously Neal doesn't have all of the answers, but he's passionate about it. And, you know, you are sharing a lot of your wisdom with us, Neal, but we don't have to have it all figured out in order to, uplift the group with our study.
the hope is to like create this, and then as I'm reading, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. As I present it, someone else might understand it. So that was kind of the thought too behind it.
I've got one more question if we still have time. Unless somebody has to go, but the stairs of light, with regards to like, where does that plug in? Because you had the picture of the guy going above the roof and heading towards the light, and we were talking, we've talked about in study group many times the idea of the stairs of light and the guardians guarding it, and then you step off where your vibration, and I know you talked about the indigo light and how that's your inner planes experience past death. Can you tell me where those plug in to each other?
So I would say that image of the guy that's floating off is just now entered the astral and is in the astral of the physical. So like is seeing what we're seeing, like people that die in hospitals can travel around the hospital and still see the nurses and everyone. And then your guidance, things that you would want to see would come pull you off of the physical realm that you are in right now, going through a tunnel gateway into the inner planes with your guides. Then you're matched with the violet ray, the totality of all the other ones. And that brings you where you do your life review, you figure out who you are, you merge back with your true soul essence. And then from there, after you've healed and gone through reviewing the life, you would be pushed towards the steps of light. And from there, you'd say, okay, I'm ready to leave this planet. And the steps of light are only for the densities. So it's like, yep, ready to go. Send me or fourth density here, or for wanderers, you might step off in fifth or sixth. But yeah, you would go into the tunnel, inner planes, and then steps of light after you've gone through all the hecticness that Earth does to you.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Neal, could you post the link to the interview with Christian Sundberg?
Yeah, definitely.
I would love to see that. Awesome. Thank you.
Can we get a copy of your slides?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll telegram it all.
And how do you spell Suzanne Geisman? How do you spell that? Suzanne.
GEISSE. I don't know. There's a lot of S's and E's. I'll post it all.
Okay.
I can't
Thanks.
spell. I don't want to mess it up. But
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank
you, Neil.
you.
Well done. Thank you.
well, should do a little closing prayer and call it a
This was
night.
great.
Mhm.
All right. We come again in thanks and gratitude for the information shared and the ability to come together and help each other along our paths back to the one creator. And we are always thankful to the first density rock, wind, the beauty in nature, and all those second density friends and animals, and to all the people that help us during this lifetime, and always finding something to smile about. And may we all go forward in helping serve others to awaken to their true creatorship within. Amen.
That was beautiful.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your week, and see you all on Sunday.
Good
Bye,
to
love
see you.
you.
Bye. Mwah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.